And I think we're live. Hello, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to the Musty Wargamer Show. This is season 5, episode 13?
13. Yes.
13. Wow, 13 episodes. We got one or two more left?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah,
for sure.
And looks like we have one viewer in here. I know one of them's me.
Yeah, and me too. But I think it normally does minus us out. Like I think it typically does it, but I could be wrong. Not saying 2 waiting, so I'm sure we'll start seeing some hellos pretty soon. So, how's things going for you, Rusty?
Well, it's going pretty good, considering everything. I've just been kind of busy doing some work on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've been working on that project I've been working on, but I didn't bring it over here to over to this desk because there's really nothing much to see. So,
Looks like we got Chevalier Griffin in the house.
Scott's in the house. All right.
Oh, that's right. I have to get used to his new name. Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Scott. That's cool.
Yeah. So other than that, I haven't been much to be considered exciting and new. Haven't been playing any games. So.
Yeah, me either lately. This week, my daughter's graduating. She's actually graduating tomorrow morning, the ceremony, and so I've got a little bit of a longer weekend, but it's been busy as far as work and stuff. And other than I've been doing some little things. Well, you know what? I'm going a little free form here. Why don't I let you finish before I start talking about me?
Let's go ahead. Continue.
Well, I was just going to say that I ended up really enjoying working on that tree that I showed.
Yeah.
And then also the bust too. I went out last weekend and I made a trip to the art store and I bought some oil paints. And I had some oil paints already, but I've been kind of reading into it and I ended up buying some opaque oil paints because some of the ones I have are semi-transparent and transparent, depending on the color. And I was trying to get ones that were recommended by those that I've been watching that paint miniatures with oil paint. And so some of that stuff's it's actually expensive, like artist quality oil paints. They're really expensive. So I couldn't believe I'm like looking at one paint. I'm like, this is a lot.
Is that the Winsor Newton style ones, or?
I did get some Winsor Newton and one other brand, but mostly Winsor Newton Artist because they have a couple different ones. They have some studio ones and some other ones, but I got the ones that just are the artist quality because I was told, basically invest in them now and just get that style to paint onto miniatures is what was recommended. So that's what I did. But yeah, like you get like cadmium yellow or blue compared to like, yellow ochre or burnt umber or something like that. It's the prices are like really quite different.
Definitely when you're looking at certain pigments, which the rare pigments, you start like, oh, that's double this one or triple or quadruple.
Yeah, like easily.
And I do watercolor painting, and it's like I got a complete set, and it's like it wasn't cheap. Let me tell you. And when you got to go start placing paints, you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly. Looks like we got Clark in the house. Hello, Clark. Thanks for joining us.
Howdy ho, Clark.
And so what are you doing for the musty drink tonight?
Well, I kind of doing the theme. Let me do this. I gotta get the theme here. There we go. Yeah. Since it's nice and warm here. I'm sorry, I gotta rub it in. It was like 95 degrees today.
Yeah.
I'm doing Appleton Estates 8-year-old rum.
Oh, nice. So that sounds good.
Rum tonight.
Nice. For those watching, for those that aren't watching, like, would they even be listening? No. That's kind of a stupid statement for those watching.
Those watching later.
Yeah. Rusty and I were just talking about how it's like 4 degrees Celsius here in Calgary right now. So I was telling him how I was shutting one of my heaters off in the basement because I had them both running right before I just came down here right before the show, and I had them both running. And one of them's got the fan noise, and so I shut that off so it doesn't blast while we're going. And he's like, "Man, it's really warm here."
Yeah, it's like the air conditioning just kicked on.
Well, I do have some spirits today, as opposed to like a beer or something like that, as
Very
well.
tasty.
Okay, so what are your aromas there that you got going on?
Oh, coming across. All right, we got vanilla. We have a little bit of oak with kind of a dried raisin with plum and kind of a cane sugar smell.
A little bit of Jolly Ranchers too.
Jolly Ranchers. I suppose if they threw a Jolly Rancher in, you would get that flavor.
Yeah. I have one I have had on the show before. I think you've had this one too on the show, but I just have Dalmore tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I have some Dalmore. This one's about to kick the bucket, actually.
I was reaching for that, and then I was like, I'm going to go theme that. So I got my shirt on. I got my South Seas shirt on.
There you go. Maybe we'll be getting some, depending on who you've chosen for your top 10, maybe we'll be getting some, what is it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, forget it. It's totally, I know what I want to say, but I can't even get it out.
Is he from Jamaica?
No. I was thinking more like wasting away in Margarita.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was thinking, who am I?
I know. It's like if you hadn't said that, I would have.
Somebody's gonna say it in the comments.
He's got his own channel, Margaritaville, on.
Yeah. So that's what you were reminding me of. That's what I thought of when I saw you with the hat and just kind of the rum and stuff. Granted, it's not margarita, but anyway.
Well,
hey, Bill.
Let me tell you, I almost made a big batch jug of Long Island iced tea, mixed it all up, and then had a thing of ice here, and I just poured it over the ice.
There you go.
Almost did that.
That worked.
That could be next time.
Yeah. Looks like we got Bill on the show.
Oh, yeah.
And he says Santana.
No,
it wasn't Santana. What we were talking about. It wasn't Carlos Santana.
Somebody's gonna. Who did Margaritaville? Stepped on a pop top, blew up my flip flop. Got this new tattoo.
Okay. I'm just gonna Google it.
Googly. Scott, you're going to be down. I'm free Saturday. I have no plans for Saturday. Hello, Clark.
Jimmy Buffett.
Hello. What's that?
Jimmy Buffett.
There we go.
Jimmy Buffett is the gentleman that sang that.
All right.
All right. So today's we've got 2 topics that are both music related, and one of them is hobby related too. We're going to ease into the hobby related one, which is but we're starting out, what are your top, we've done like favorite movies of different kinds in the past, and movies, I know it kind of inspires to some degree certain genres in wargaming, and so sometimes, whether you're historical, you're sci-fi or fantasy, you can relate those, and there's that tangent. Well, tonight we're just doing music. Doesn't necessarily, that first part, the top 10, have anything to do with the hobby necessarily, but it's more just us as friends just talking about music. And then as well, we're going to ease it in and then talk about when we do paint in hobby, what are some of the music that we individually like to listen to when we do that. So we will cap it off with kind of that hobby connection. So Rusty, we're going to go in order from 10 to 1, I'm assuming, like we typically do. I think we've tried to bring some props tonight to actually make it a little more
interesting. I made you bring props tonight.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, you're bringing props? I better go get some.
Let me put my elbow on my props right here. I got a big stack of props. I gotta say, Smitty, Scott there, he's seen a lot of these props and he's been in the same car with me that some of these props are rocking out. So, and some of these, we've been to the same concerts together with some of these props. So, listening to the music, going to the concerts.
So he's gonna wonder which ones you in what order you put them in. Probably won't be too surprised, but
let me put it this way: there's really not necessarily an order of best to worst of my favorite top 10.
You know, that's a good point, and I was gonna say something about that. You know, because well, for me, well, one, of course, these are the top 10, and I'm not saying these are the most talented artists compared to one versus the other. Like somebody may say, well, your number 8 is just a blockbuster of music, and your number 1 is kind of niche. You know, it really is for me. Like, so this is my top 10. It's not, you know, not that these are the top 10. They're all best in the world like that. And also, like you said, some of them were so close that it was hard to actually pick them, but I did put some thought and still actually I still did my best to do them for today without going and looking through my collection, just in my head, what I'm listening to now, what I've listened to across my life, who would be my top 10. And I tried to actually do it. So yeah, like if it's number 2, then it's over number 3. Having said that, it's tough because there were times when we would shuffle around. You know, and this is just like for today for me. So I kind of found it fun in some ways. That's why I think top 10 things are fun. Like people like to categorize, like we're all kind of creatures of organization and collecting and whatever.
Yeah, when you look at certain bands, it's like, how do you pick your favorite child amongst that band? It's like, I love that song, or I love that song. Do I love that song more than this song? I don't know. It's like, it depends on the mood. It's like, you know, you drive it along or something, and a song will pop on, and you're like, like, do you have to turn that music up so loud? I can't hear you. The music's so loud.
Well, you should, if you can, you should say why you have one at like number 8 and not at number 2 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like not like you know, like you could elaborate as to why you went towards, you know, like that level. But I do understand that sometimes it's tough, like to get, you know, like. And also, if you like a lot of music, which I know you do, and I do as well, you know, if you've listened to so much music, then it's hard to pick a top 10. You know, I have artists that I'm like, really, they're not in my. I just bought a vinyl of an artist this week, and I have listened to this particular like cassette tape or, you know, in CD for years, and just got it on vinyl because I like it so much. They're not even in my top 10, and I was just like, oh, they're not even in my top 10, but that I still love that artist. And so
Who would that be?
That one was Men at Work. We've talked about them, you know.
Let's see here.
I really liked, to some people they're one-hit wonders, but like their album
wouldn't be this one, would it?
That's it. Yeah.
That one right there.
I got that on vinyl, and I have it on CD. I used to have it on cassette. But I love that so much, almost from cover to cover. This
is an excellent album. Both of their 2 albums that they came out in the early 80s.
Cargo is really good too.
Yeah, I'd listened to them. I got a Cargo, I think is Cargo. Is it that in this? It might be in vinyl here. I got Cargo also on CD too.
But to me, that's like a, you know, how like you have some albums that are like a work of art where you like every song, you know, and just, well, that's one of them. But they're not in my top 10 because I just have so many others that I like too. So we could ramble on, and we've got other folks, you know, watching and probably have opinions on their favorite, you know, music artists of all time. What is your number 10, Rusty?
Well, I don't know if I have to go grab from the bottom of the stack here.
See, I've got mine in order, just about.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, there we go. You might recognize this one.
Oh yes, Van Halen.
Van Halen's Diver Down.
Diver Down in 1984.
Yep.
Yep.
Van Halen is like, that was when you were, see, this one came out in 78, I think it was.
I thought that was 84.
Huh?
I thought it was 84.
Well, I'm just thinking this one came out in '78, but that was when I think it was 8th grade when this came out.
Okay.
And just listening to it is like when you listen, it's like you had Intruder come on and you go, meow, meow, and it's like that comes on. I was like, what is that?
By the end of this episode, we'll be doing full air guitar and headbanging.
I almost rock out the guitar and go, and start rocking, actual guitar. But no, Van Halen it's like when you were a teenager, you can understand because a lot of your stuff probably comes from your teen years, and this was my early teens. So, just listening to it, it was like you hear that sound. It's that grinding, it's not coming across, and you're like, holy buckets, who is that?
I'm a little weird. A lot of my stuff comes from just before when I was a teenager to when I was really young, because I like as I like a lot of 70s, and that time of the 70s transitioning to the 80s, 78 through 82 is one of my favorite periods for pop culture. And at that time I was like 7, 8 years old, and I wasn't fully absorbing it then. It was all around me and I was kind of absorbing, but I kind of really continued to listen to it. Yeah.
It was like, so the 1984, we went to the concert, when it came into town, and it was so cool. It was that you had, I'm suddenly drawing a blank of the lead singer at the time.
David Lee Roth.
There you go.
Yeah.
And he's up there singing, and you see him up in the top, up there singing, just singing a song, and all of a sudden he comes down and he's on a surfboard. Mm-hmm. And the surfboard comes swinging down over the crowd like that, and he's surfing on the surfboard. I'm like, whoa, that's cool, rock. It's like, so that was kind of a cool.
Nice. Actually, but Eddie Van Halen passing, it's kind of always a good time to talk about Van Halen. I mean, like, in the sense that I felt that as a loss, because I listened to their music all my life, and they were such a great, and I always regarded him as just such a great musician. You just in many ways one of a kind. That was unfortunate, and so they were an awesome band. I saw them live too. I saw them mostly later with Sammy Hagar because I was a little young during the time of David Lee Roth, but I really liked the album OU812. I really liked that album.
OU812, huh?
Yeah. But I saw that one live.
That was a good one. That was Sammy Hagar. Mm-hmm. Let's see. I think Smitty and I went to that one together. You have to remind me of that one, Scott. Like, we've been together to so many concerts. And I have to say, it's like, was that?
And you remember them all perfectly.
Well, there was a little bit of drinking involved in one of them. It's like they were kind of blurry at times.
Yeah.
I have to admit. Plus, there was all the ambient air going on.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Well, you didn't inhale the whole time.
Well, only when I had to, because you have to breathe eventually.
Right. Well, for mine, the only one I don't have a prop, and I was telling Rusty that because all their stuff that I had, and I just somehow got lost in translation when I left home and went to college, and I went back and bought it all digitally, a lot of their albums, but I still listen to them, from the digital stuff, and I'm mostly a fan of physical media. I mostly try to have everything in physical media. But Iron Maiden is my number 10. Now you can show it. I wanted to find. I don't know if you have. Somewhere in Time was the one that came to mind at the time.
Oh, okay.
But in any case.
Here, so.
I still really like when I'm doing when I'm working outside and I'm doing stuff, I like to blast Iron Maiden. When I really want to be energized and listen to something from a long time ago, I like to listen to Iron Maiden. And basically when you see the rest of my list, Rusty and I have talked, we both were kind of a bit headbangers in the 80s. And I went through that phase for sure. Like I saw lots of speed metal, and I had a real phase of listening to thrash metal and stuff like that when I was a teenager. Iron Maiden wasn't quite that category to me. Like that was kind of they were heavy metal, I would say, in my opinion. But the rest of my list, it doesn't really have any of that. But I still really like to listen to Iron Maiden. I love the lyrics, and I love the dual guitars, the harmonious guitars of Iron Maiden. And so they are my number 10 of top bands. Artists, bands, whatever. Looks like you don't have any physical media either, Rusty.
Oh, I do. God, I
do have it
right there.
Maiden. I do have it, Maiden.
Well, I thought I had. Actually, I was like, I was looking for I thought I had a copy of some Iron.
There's another. I'll give you a clue though. Don't say it if you know it, if you think you know it. But there's another band that in my top 10 that has dueling guitars too. I like dueling guitar. I like where you have two kind of guitars, which is not often the case in rock music. Where you have two of them simultaneously playing. And Iron Maiden and this other band do that, and I just find that it actually has a cool effect within the music. But
no, I think Scott and we did go to the Iron Maiden concert together. Which one was it? Was it Sad Winds of Destiny?
Okay, Rusty. Time to stop reminiscing and on to number 9.
Well, I only reminisced so long, so
reminiscing. Oh yeah, they're awesome.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Like, I've seen these guys in concert quite a few times. REO Speedwagon. We're gonna go see REO Speedwagon, Journey, and Loverboy this September.
Nice.
So
that would be an awesome concert.
So here's a classic one: REO Speedwagon. They've been around forever today. If there's something you haven't heard from them, that's like, what rock are you living under? They're from the 7th. Well, actually, I think they got started. They're from Illinois, so was it the late 60s they got started? Really, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. They've been around for a long time, but yeah, they got some great music. REO Speedwagon, definitely nice. What I would call classic music. It's like love ballads. It's like you go on a date and you want the little lady to be happy, throw some REO Speedwagon in.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, let's see. We got.
I know we've got some comments, but just Crown of Command has popped in, and said hello.
Oh yeah,
Crown of Command. Doing a bit of a music and what you listen to when you're painting show today, and so.
Yeah, there we go. The Trooper, Pieces of Mind.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. There we go. Iron Maiden is an awesome choice, always. Yeah, it's like, 1984 we went to.
Nice.
So many times. It's like when you're going back 35 plus 36, 37 years, things get a little blurry. Or even 38 years for that matter.
Absolutely.
It's I can see some of those wonderful old epic boxes in the background.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's like all I can see is this album right here. So there you go.
All right. Well,
any experience with REO Speedwagon yourself?
I actually they're I listen to a lot of retro channels like for music, and they always come on and stuff, and I probably will pick some up. It's one that I've always listened to and appreciated, but I've never picked up any of their albums. But I probably would pick up some of their stuff. I actually think they're really good. Yeah. So, okay. So.
Oh, here we got a comment. We went to the REO Speedwagon Cheap Trick. That was our epic tour weekend that Scott and I did. We went to Crocus and Dokken Friday night. Then we went to REO Speedwagon Cheap Trick on Saturday night, and then I continued on and seeing. It was Motley Crue with
Nice.
on Sunday. So yeah, that was a busy night for us. Weekend.
So number 9 for me, and I just have probably not their best CD, but it's one from the 1982, and that is The Who.
Yeah.
This one's it's hard. The album from 1982. It's got like good songs. So Athena, It's Hard, like the title album, very good. There you go. The for me, so they were a group that I listened to in high school a lot, even though they were really before my time. I mean, they were like late 60s and through the 70s, but they in the late 80s, I saw them in 1988 at Giant Stadium, and really it was a really great concert. But I hung out with a lot of guys that were older than me and that really liked him, and I really liked him too. And I always have, and my favorite album, I didn't grab it because it doesn't say Who across it. It's not a great album cover to show if you want to like show the Who, but it's Quadrophenia is my favorite, by absolute favorite album of theirs, concept album kind of. And yeah, they're kind of, I said that there wasn't a lot of more hard music, on my list coming up, but the Who kind of are. I mean, like they still
they
pound the guitars and drums. I mean, it was just a different time. It wasn't speed metal, heavy metal of like the 80s growing up, but it was definitely kind of hard music in that sense. But
I know that Scott and I would sit around and play Advanced Squad Leader, listening to a lot of Who.
Mm-hmm.
He'd throw his Who albums on, and we'd be playing Squad Leader.
And that's our next topic. You're already bleeding into it there. But the Who, it's great, great music for sure.
Oh absolutely. Yeah. Now you were talking about the Who being, you wouldn't think of the Who being really hard rockers. It's like in '82 when I got to see the Who in concert. The only time it's like I think their last tour they ever did. It was really loud.
Might have been for this album because this was '82, or at least it was close. Because this is 1982.
Yeah.
Eminence Front is the best song on this one.
Yeah.
That's a great song.
The flute on.
Yeah.
Now, this is not one of my top 10. This is what we call
honorable mention.
Honorable mention. You want to talk about going to a concert. You always hear Dan Fogelberg. You've heard of Dan Fogelberg.
Mm-hmm.
You think of him as all the songs, oh, the fishes in the ocean, really quiet, melodies. You go to his concert, this guy was a freaking beast.
Oh.
He rocked. I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, oh, okay, my girlfriend wants to go see the Dan Fogelberg. I like Dan Fogelberg. It's like, okay, I'll go. But I was like, okay, I'm just like probably going to be kind of like laid back. No. Yeah. Not at all. This guy was just like he's shredding guitars, and the band was just going crazy. Like, wow,
I'm kind of enjoying this.
I'm liking this.
Okay, how about number 8, Rusty? Who's your number 8?
Number 8. God damn, here we go. Oh, that's number. Nope.
Doesn't put them in order.
I have to dig down here. Here we go.
Let me look at 9 Inch Nails.
No.
What is that?
Whitesnake.
Oh, Whitesnake. 9 Inch Nails has an album cover similar to that.
Yeah, this is their greatest hit album.
Oh yeah, Whitesnake. Yeah, for sure.
Whitesnake. Let's just put it this way: the very first date my wife and I went on. When we were just dating, her very first date, I took her to a Whitesnake concert. And let's just say she wasn't really a heavy metal person. I converted her.
They were good, absolutely.
Oh, it's like
David Coverdale, right?
What's that?
Coverdale, David Coverdale.
Yep, David Coverdale. Still,
did he pass away, or was his wife or something?
What was that?
Somebody passed away, either him or his wife. Recently passed away.
I think it was the actress, model / actress
that was his wife at one point.
That was in his videos. Passed away.
He never married her? I thought he did.
No.
Okay.
I know he was married to someone else when he made some of these, one of his apples up, and they were going through like the rocks and stuff. They were having a hard time, and that's why you like crying in the rain.
Yeah.
No one can notice you when you're crying in the rain because you got the rain coming down. He's like,
he's breaking
up. His whole marriage was on the rocks and everything, and he's like, and he was saying, it's like, yeah, some of your best music will ever come out when you're in such emotional drained state. It's like when you're so miserable, that's when you make some of your best music. Which is, he said, part of the problem when you get successful, it's hard to make really good music because you're not miserable anymore. And it's like Whitesnake. It's like I've seen these guys several times. Excellent. I don't know if David Coverdale's still touring or not, or doing shows.
Not sure.
I'm not sure at all.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That's a good one. So that's your number 8. My number 8, and this is an example of one where for a lot of people this would be their number 1, and you know, a lot of people would say this is like maybe like the most talented, successful on my list completely. But I only have him at number 8 because I listen to him so much, and they're amazing, and I listen to everything. And I listen to it over and over. I listen to it so much that I just stopped listening to it for like decades because I listened to it so much. And now my kids really like it, and I enjoy it kind of through them discovering it, or at least one of my daughters likes them, and they're amazing. And I still think they're great, but they're not who I pull to listen to most of the time. I'll just occasionally listen to something, and so without all the build up now, like I've built it up sufficiently. Number 8, Beatles. I do really you don't really like the Beatles, Rusty. The Beatles to me,
dead bug.
And I think that they are truly amazing songwriters and, you know, musicians, and they created some amazing music that influenced even at least one other artist that's pretty high up on my list. I would say is majorly influenced by them. But I like them a little better at this point in my life, the way that they took a direction with the music. But yeah, I love the Beatles. They're not hard music like the stuff we had before, but I think they're awesome. And so they are my number 8.
I remember in 10th grade, we were in English class sitting there, and our English teacher comes in, she's like crying. I'm like, what's going on here? And she was dropped down to her knees.
John Lennon died.
And John Lennon died.
Yeah.
Oh. It's like, obviously, she grew up with the Beatles, so that was a big thing in her life. And she was like, oh, it's horrible. John Lennon's dead. I was like,
okay. Rusty's like, the only album I ever bought is the one that I bought, so I burned with a bunch of other people. That did happen, actually, more for religious reasons, but I think. But in any case,
the Beatles never. Every once in a while, they had some good songs. I don't deny that one bit. It's like during the era when they came up, they really instilled a lot of good music.
Yeah, a lot was influenced by them, but you know, they had their own style, and you know, there's I don't know how to say it. I mean, like there's an edginess or a personality to some of the music that I listen to now that I like that isn't necessarily present in the Beatles per se, you know, but the Beatles were really talented, you know, to me, and they still wrote awesome songs, and I enjoy their music. But I kind of they're one of, you know who's another band, they're not on my list, but I really like them and I listen to them to death, and then I didn't really listen to them much for like decades, is Led Zeppelin. I listened to them forever. They're amazing, you know. There you go. They're awesome. I mean, and I listened to them to death, like when I was in high school and stuff. But then I listened to them so much that I had a decade's worth of several decades worth of listening done, and I still actually have their stuff and put it on.
I burned out on Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, me too. I kind of did, and it has nothing to do with, you know, it's just because it was just I listened to it so much that I just didn't need to listen to it for a long time after that. But
I think on our last show we were talking about Led Zeppelin. It's like I made mixtapes. I took all the best songs of Led Zeppelin, put them on a couple of cassettes, and when I would drive around all the time, I'd listen to them. And it just got to the point now. I realized I was like, you know what? I don't think I can stand listening to another Led Zeppelin song. Like, is that possible? It's like you love something so much that you just like, I don't think I can listen to it much anymore.
Chris Walkabout Games is in the house. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
We were doing our top 10 favorite music of all time. And we had just finished number 8. And now Rusty is at number 7.
Count it down. Here we go. Speaking of the man who bit the head off a bat right here in Des Moines, it was Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh, yes. And that's a good one. Ultimate Sin?
Yes.
Yeah, I have that one on CD too. That's great.
We were watching MTV and the Blizzard comes up, Mr. Ozman himself, and he had that video comes out, and we're like, Scott and I are watching, we're like, I like, woo! Good stuff. I don't know if it's like the number of times I've listened to this album, I just throw it in every once in a while and just listen to them. It's like I got the whole repertoire of all Ozzy stuff. It's like I was never much. I kind of like some of the Black Sabbath stuff. I do.
That's where I was going. I was just about to ask you that.
And it's like I was never overly a big Black Sabbath guy, but when he started doing his own, he went, after he got kicked out of the band for being drunk and fool, and then they put Ronnie James Dio behind it. It's like Ronnie James Dio is not a bad guy. But then when Ozzy started doing his own solo work, it's like that's when he is like the reins were taken off of him, because I think a lot of the problem was that when he was with Black Sabbath, the guys in that band kind of reined him in a bit, his little creativity. And
what I would say, and I'm not professing to be an expert on his music or Black Sabbath. I actually have both, selections of both. I find that if you take out what Ozzy's saying in his solo music and you don't talk about the lyrics per se, but if you just kind of listen to the music, I actually find that Black Sabbath is a bit darker than Ozzy. Like Ozzy's a bit more energetic as a solo artist, and he had like awesome music. But if you listen to like Master Reality and Sweet Leaf and like some of the like that old Sabbath music, it's fairly pioneering at the time for the depressed music, but like to the point of like dark. And I'm not, and so for some people, like that's an outlet.
It's like a dark drug fugue. It's like there's something there that is just like scratching at the wall that is wrong.
And I honestly appreciate it. Like the Black Sabbath, like I like Master Reality as an album, and I think it's cool. Like when I listen to it, I'm like, wow, that's deep. Like, it's pretty deep. Because there's other music that's dark, that's come out in the decades since then, and you can kind of get that same sense to it. But definitely Ozzy's as a solo artist was kind of wild. Like his music was really good, and didn't have that kind of foreboding kind of dark aspect to it that I found Black Sabbath did.
Yeah, it's there, but it's kind of like energetic when you have it. It's like you look at the two of them, it's like I said, one is like kind of a nightmare state going on, and the other one's like, you still got the nightmare state, but we're happy we're here, type thing.
This is your nightmare that you're enjoying. The other one's a nightmare that you're kind of freaked out by.
Who's knocking at the door? Should I let him in?
No, so that's interesting. It's an interesting kind of difference. So we're on 8, right? Or 7. We're on 7. So for me, 7 is Thin Lizzy.
Oh yeah.
Jailbreak, their I believe is their first album. I believe it's their debut album. At least it's the first one I ever had, and I thought it was, but maybe I'm wrong. It's funny. This is the band I was talking about that also has the dueling guitars, as well. Like it's just really harmonic, and I really love their sound. I mean, it almost had a little bit of a pre-punk kind of sound before punk rock came out to me in hard rock. Like it had like a bit of an attitude that I found really, that I still find is really cool. You okay there, Rusty?
I just like got the song going through my head.
Beep, 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 beep.
Yeah. So, like you said, dueling guitar.
Yeah.
I had that going through my head.
Yeah. And so I have a lot of their stuff. Actually, this is just one I grabbed, but I have a lot of their albums. And you know, it's not actually a group that I listened to since I was a kid and like, you know, and knew they were around in the 70s. Like I actually really, I heard my parents actually had this particular album, and I'd heard The Boys Are Back in Town my whole life, and I liked that. But I actually started getting into them a lot more like 7 years ago, you know, to be honest. And they're on my list as a top because I now actually still listen to them a lot and seek out albums and buy stuff. So,
well, it's in some ways it's a certain form of maturity when it comes to music. You don't appreciate some music until you reach a certain state in your life. It was like you hear a song and it talks to you basically, because music is something that works in your soul basically, and it's an emotional state. And if you can hear a song and you're not emotionally ready for it, and it's like, that type of deal.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny how different things appeal to you at different times of life, even if it was a while ago. I'm pretty sure that you don't like this artist, Rusty, but another artist not on my list that I really like, she came out in the early 90s, and I didn't really start listening to her stuff until maybe 10 years ago. It is Bjork, and I really quite like her stuff. And
I heard the name, but I don't know if you played the music, I wouldn't even know who it is.
Yeah, she's from Iceland, and my wife hates it, like absolutely hates it, but it's different, quite a bit different.
Icelandic death music?
No, not at all. I'll have to send you some stuff. I mean, I don't think you'll like it, to be honest. I know a little bit about your taste, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you'll surprise me. But I just, you know, because I know it's a little bit veers away from, I think, what you enjoy, some of the things I know you enjoy. But at the same time, no, I like her stuff, but I didn't listen to it at all right when I got out of high school in the early 90s. And then I kind of started listening to it kind of around 2010, like 20 years after she was popular. And but that's like what we're talking about, that sometimes you just go back and you pick something up that you never really paid attention to, and then you're like all of a sudden a big fan, and all the other fans have actually like, where have you been?
Well, I didn't know I was supposed to be a fan until I heard it on the soundtrack of a movie, and I was like, hey, that's pretty cool. I was like, where did that music come from? That's a lot of it's like there's a song going around I hear on the radio every once in a while, and it was from the early 90s, and it never made it anywhere on the radio. But now it's extremely popular, played all the time because it was on a movie soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody's like, wow, this is great. And then you got millions of people go, oh, this is great. So
that happens. Absolutely. Well, we are going to number 6, Rusty. What's your number 6?
All right, number 6. Here. Well, I have to go with this one.
Metallica? Is that the Black Album?
That's the Black Album.
Okay, Metallica. Yeah, I was like, I'm looking. It's like, it's either that or it's, what is the Spinal Tap? It's either Spinal Tap or Metallica. There you go.
Master.
That was the first album I had of theirs.
1986, this one I think it was.
Yeah, that's a great album.
Yeah. It's like I got a whole bunch of Metallica stuff sitting here.
Yeah.
It's like I had to buy the cassette, seen these guys in concert a couple times. The last time they came rolling through was like $200 and something for a ticket. I'm like, no. I paid $30 the first time I seen them. So Metallica. It's like there's the mighty Metallica. It's like in some ways they're probably the best long-term rock band, I'd have to say. You just watch the progression of how they gone from their early years more of a thrash metal band to now they're just power ballad / metal, and they're kind of getting back to their roots again and some stuff that you got coming out. But it's like you listen to Master of Puppets is like I would be able to, there was one time I could actually play this on a guitar. Oh my gosh, it's like that was in the days when I was actually pretty good at it. It's like you're sitting there going just rocking it on. It's like your fingers are just going
I saw them twice, and it was around the time. It was just before the Justice for All tour, and then a bit after, or during / after. I saw them for that tour, and then I saw them before it too.
Now, since we're talking about Metallica, we have to talk about one of the former guitarists in Metallica.
And the other band that he formed. There you go. That would have been my favorite album.
Because Dave Mustaine used to be the lead guitarist in Metallica.
Yeah, no, I actually that would be my favorite album of theirs too, that you have right there.
It's like Peace. It's got the
that used to be sold for sure with the explicit sticker on it.
Yeah, for the
on the plastic wrap, it had when I bought it had the explicit.
Yeah, lyrics may contain or may be considered offensive by some audiences. And for a whopping price of $6.95, you too could have a Metallica album or any type of album. I was just the other day, last Saturday, we're one of our local hobby shops that also has CDs, albums, and stuff. And that album right there was going for like $50. And I'm like looking around, it's like flipping through the stuff, like, holy buckets, Batman. Is like they actually get these prices for this stuff, like for vinyl. Like, my gosh, that's crazy. So, what is your number 6?
Number 6,
Talking Heads.
Yeah. So, Talking Heads are a group. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with them. They're a group that I always was familiar with through the 80s. At the time, I was an MTV kid. Like I grew up. In 81 or 80 when MTV came out, I was right there when all they did was play Shock the Monkey and 2 other songs over and over because they had no other videos. Like when they first came out, Talking Heads definitely, although they were really popular in the New York like punk kind of culture scene of like the turning of the late 70s to the 80s. They also, they became really popular with videos and things, and I was familiar with them, but I never was really too absorbed into their music growing up. But actually, in recent years, after having listened to the Greatest Hits albums over the years and starting to get more and more into their music, I started to take more interest in their music. And this is their one of their early albums, and it's called Remain in the Light, and it's totally different in many respects from a lot of what I normally would associate with their music that I would see like on videos. And it's really high energy, really cool. I really love the lyrics and like a lot of the messages and stuff that are being mentioned. It's just very different than a lot of music, even I think at that time that came out. And so, yeah, I listen to this a lot now. I actually just bought this vinyl album not that long ago. And so they're a group that I listen to a lot now. I only have them as number 6, as far as course of my life and music, but I really am listening to them a lot now. And so I kind of put them on the list at that level.
What's some of the popular songs on that one?
On this one, this particular one, Once in a Lifetime, is one of the more popular ones. But to be honest, this album is, of the ones that I've listened to of their actual albums, is my favorite. But really, only one of the songs was a major hit. But some of my favorite songs on the album I like more than that major hit, if that makes sense. Like this is very different than what some of the songs is very different than what people even think of their music that have only heard the greatest hits. And so it's got a cool back cover too there.
Oh yeah.
So we talk about Wargaming.
Kind of reminds me of the B-52s.
Yeah. Well, the music to me is different, but yeah, I hear you. We're 15 miles from the fill in the blank.
Love Shack.
So that was number 6.
Number 6. All right. You like this one?
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Def Leppard.
They're great.
Number 5.
They would really be an honorable mention for me. Like they were an important part of my youth. Pyromania was my big
album. Hysteria, Into
Diver. No, not Diver Down.
Highway.
On Through the Night was a cool one. It wasn't one of their more popular ones, but there was another one. The guy on the surfboard, the guy like over the pool, like I used to have this album, but it was a guy like they showed him like with a swimming pool below him, like it was a guy like, you know what I'm talking about. It came out right before Pyromania. In any case, it had some good songs on it too, but Pyromania was the one that really was a huge thing. As a matter of fact, and it came out in 1984, and it oftentimes went head to head with 1984, the album on MTV, Battle of Friday Night Fights, and like the Battle of the Bands and stuff. Like they were both seminal rock albums that have come out at the time. You know, they were both really good. And I have to tell you, actually at the time, I was like rooting for Def Leppard, like over Van Halen. Like at the time, they were like the band I was really into.
They put out really good music. They had great albums, and they're just a couple of years ago we seen them in concert just here. You know, they're still doing the tours and still rocking it out. It's like
we were talking about them the other night. I remember.
I sent you the link to their latest album that they had. They had their newest video, Kick. Mm-hmm. Not really what I consider on the level of music coming off this one, but it's like we had the discussion. It was like they're still putting stuff out. They're still filling the stands. You know, it's like that's the good thing about them, that they're just not giving up.
Yeah,
they could have broke
one bingo hall at a time.
Yeah, you got 5, 6 old grandmas in there, and you're good to go. You know, it's like they're all just licking the walls and going to
town. They were really, really good. It's really funny, like because I listened to that stuff at the same time, even though the music was totally different. For some reason, you're probably going to think this is ridiculous, but I sometimes think of Duran Duran when I think of them because 1, they both start with D, 2, they're both from England, and 3, they both were just really good. And even though they were so different, like the music was so different, one had nothing to do with the other.
Rio,
but like the Reflex, like all their stuff. I like Duran Duran too, actually. Yeah. And it just, for whatever reason, when I think of like British groups from the 80s of that time, you know, like both of them, like when I think of the one, sometimes I just immediately get in this weird association of thinking the other. It's just funny.
Yeah, it's like Duran Duran's album you were just talking about came out my senior year, and many times we were sitting there. They would play all the time on the radio. And they pump into our cafeteria because we'd have our free period would be in there, and Scott and I had our 7th period was free, so we could leave if we wanted to, but a lot of times we just hang out. And
would you leave when Duran Duran came on?
No. So we'd sit around, listen to everything, and just jaw.
This makes me want to start massacring people.
I don't know, but
So what are we at? Is that number 5?
That was number 5. You're number 5.
So, my number 5. Quite a bit of a turn here. And so my number 5 is Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Okay.
And this is I Am, the album I Am. I listened to their greatest hits for many years. This is just one particular album that I really like of their albums. This is a group that not only do I I feel better like when I listen to this music. I just find I love like the music itself, and I love like how it makes me feel. Like it's just really positive, I find. And then the other thing is like a lot of my family really like it too. So this is like something I can throw on like while we're eating or something, and everybody's grooving, you know, as we're at the dinner table and stuff. And it's just great music. And yeah,
Well, I'm gonna have to call the police on you.
I actually, they would be an honorable mention for me, for sure.
Yeah. That's
like,
one of
I
my
love the police.
Like the police back in the early '80s, man, they really run.
Yeah, I actually just bought one of their albums. Actually, just 2 weeks ago, I actually just got another CD of theirs. One of the things I really like about the police is I interpret it this way, at least, is there's a bit of a Jamaican beat to their in a lot of their music, and same with Men at Work to some degree. Like there's a bit of that, I find a little bit of that influence in there, and I love Sting's voice and the beats and the synthesizers they threw down, and just that '80s sound. It was very crisp and awesome, you know, music of that time for sure. I thought about them, but they didn't make the top 10, but they're definitely an honorable mention for me.
I had some music playing today, and my son comes walking down, and he looks at me, and he's like, "You listen to Sting?" I'm like, no, this is not the Sting album, because Sting did a lot of classical music. And he was like, "Is that Sting?" I'm like, no, that's not Sting.
Was it the police you were listening to?
No.
Oh, you were just listening to something else.
Something else. But he'd done a lot of stuff. One of his albums he put out about 10 years ago was classical.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I have some of his solo stuff. You know, it's funny when you compare iconic singers that then go out on their own, and you compare them to the original album. We were just talking about Black Sabbath and Ozzy. We could talk about Sting, you know, and the Police. Sometimes, you know, I definitely like the artist better. You know, they actually kind of almost go beyond. And then sometimes, sorry,
you fell flat on your face.
Well, you know, sorry, but it didn't quite, you know, go as well, like not to that level. And I would actually, for me personally, say that the Police were better than Sting was on his own, like when they were together. Personally, I don't think he superseded them. Having said that, he did actually do some pretty good songs on his own. Would you disagree, or?
Oh, he did okay. I think he was better in the Police than he was solo. That's just kind of how I feel about it.
I don't know. Sometimes the dynamic of the other members of the group, you know.
Yeah, you get individuals, the collective getting together and writing music. Because when you're a one-man band, basically, you're like, this is the vision I have, and I'm going forward. And then, you know, you got that going on, and then someone who's like, that's pretty good, but what if I do this? You know, the guitarist would go, you know, starting like, whoa, okay, I like that. That adds a little bit of tempo to this that just brings out something that I was trying to, but I just couldn't figure it out. And that's when you got a band working together and bring something forth like that. And
I noticed Bill mentioned that Sting was in Dune 2, and you know, I not only remember that very well because I did like the David Lynch film, but he also I was going to say, that character he played, to my knowledge, they're not bringing it into the new Dune film, which a lot of people were kind of a little bit against that.
Yeah, it's like kind of surprised that they're not going to bring out all the characters, because they brought forth, you know, the what's his name, the Madman, whatever he's called, the nephew.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got, something else to show here that's related to that. I do have something here. Here we go. Yeah, it's like I forgot it. It's like we mentioned this one.
You're not getting paid for this every time you show a Megadeth thing, right?
Well, I played a Mr. Announcer guy once on TV.
So we're at number 4, is that right?
I think so. We're down to
we're getting up there now, or getting down there now, however you want to put it. Who's your number 4?
Well, okay, back here. Where you go? Cha-ding.
I'm getting a bit of glare on there. Crocus.
Crocus.
I don't have much of any knowledge of them.
Well, let's just call it they're from Sweden.
Okay.
Not Sweden, Switzerland. They're a Swiss band.
Okay.
Heavy metal. You'd be almost thinking that almost AC/DC like.
Okay.
Very good. It's like Scott and I love these guys. And
nice.
We've been to the concert. I've seen these guys a couple times in concert. They're doing their last tour now. They've actually said we're throwing it in. It's like, we've been around for such a long period of time. We're calling it. So. But Crocus, they have a whole repertoire of albums. They got a bunch of them. And there's look at the back cover right there.
So what the 80s or what would they be?
70s,
80s,
90s.
Okay. Cool.
You ever heard Screaming in the Night?
Only in bad circumstances.
Screaming in the Night. Yeah.
Probably not the screaming you're referring to.
Well, let's see. The lyrics basically go, he's got me chained up to a willow tree, tortured basically. And he eventually gets free, and he goes his raiding party. He goes finds his woman, finds her dead, and there's much blood and gore. Yeah.
And then it gets really bad.
Yeah.
So we're at so we are on number 4.
Yeah.
All right. My number 4.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to talk about stuff when you haven't got any knowledge of them. Let's see, what is that?
You see him?
Yeah, I see him, but I'm trying to read the print there.
The Doobie Brothers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Doobie Brothers.
I
love the Doobie Brothers.
I think they were here last summer for the fair.
Mm-hmm.
We had the Doobie Brothers and Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Been around for a long time. Had some change in singers, and crossover of those two singers. Michael McDonald happens to be a singer that I have always liked. I grew up listening to their greatest hits, but then as years went by, really kind of got into their albums, and I honestly really liked a lot of their mid to later stuff even more, because I really like that sort of what some people call yacht rock, but that sort of sound of the late 70s, early 80s and rock that was heavily produced, crisp kind of sound of that time, with really soulful, sound of Michael McDonald over it. And then, kind of like, Every Fool Believes, like that kind of, those kind of songs I just love. And so I have a lot of their albums, and and they're really up there. They're my number 4.
Did you ever get to see Chicago?
I've never gotten to see them, but they would be probably my number 11 on this list. I love Chicago. They're amazing, and I love the incorporation of all of their horns like an instrument, like
it's like literally like a rock band.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got it's like kind of an orchestra horn section. It's just how they harmonize that is so good. It's like
they're very soulful too, and in their music. And so Chicago's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. 25 or 64, like all of that stuff, I really like for sure. Make Me Smile is one of my favorite songs that it's so great, so good. Chicago.
Oh, here we go. Doobie Brothers, Steely Dan. I was just listening to some Steely Dan on the radio the other day, and it's like every time it's like I hear the song come up, that's Steely Dan. It's like
I've been told that I like Steely Dan.
What are you trying to say? It might be one of your getting up there.
Can't speak yet. So I meant an honorable mention for the future.
Well, just to clarify for me, I have a number 1, but I got a King of the Top one too.
King of the Top, what's that?
It's like you got your top 10, and then there's the king. So.
See, then I have to change everything now. That doesn't, because my number one has to be the king of the top. I'm going to say I've got the number one and the king of the top. They're combined. In any case, Baker Street epitomized that time. That's a good point. Yeah.
Definitely. Most definitely. Yeah, you get to, when you start talking about, Dire Straits, Sultans of Swing. It was like my first experience with Dire Straits with Sultans of Swing. Every time that comes on the radio, I was like, and I start singing to it.
So, Rusty, who's your number 3? We're really getting up there now.
Yeah, it's like, it was kind of
hard, huh? Number 3.
It's kind of hard to see what number 3 is, but it's going to be real easy.
Oh yeah, Rush. Yeah, I knew you're a big Rush fan. I have that exact double CD.
Yeah,
I bought that in the 1980s, I believe.
Yeah, it's like definitely had to have it. It was one of the first after buying a bunch of Crocus and albums. I was like, Rush.
Now, in a lot of ways, maybe I know you likely know more about Rush by far than I do, because they would not be this high on the list for me. I do really like them. I like Moving Pictures as an album, and I really liked a lot of their later stuff. When I mean later, I don't mean later to me is anything after 1985 for them. Like I don't mean later as in recent decades or anything like that. I mean 70s versus 80s is kind of, because I found there was a huge difference between their early music in the 70s and the 80s music that was highly produced and with a lot of synthesizers and things like that.
Yeah, they went hog wild on the synthesizers because they were a 3-man band. They did a lot of extra sounds. Like you look at 2112, that it's like.
But I like that stuff, and I wasn't as much in their early stuff. So I like the stuff they evolved into, in the 80s with the synthesizers and all that. But that's just me. So I don't know. How do you feel about that as somebody that likes them even more than I do?
There's definitely, it's like how Bill says, I love Rush too. I listen to them so much, the music wore out on me. Kind of like me and Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier.
It's like you can listen to something too much and then just burn out on it.
Yeah.
You can tell the transition of how they went from too much synthesizer, I believe, in the 70s to then it just started getting that they changed it up and making that transition in the early 80s to later on, how you listen to it. And if you listen to some of their newest stuff that came out, they had a couple albums in around 2000s, and there is a big difference. You can tell how they've changed. But then again, as when you look at the early years of how, like, Neil Peart was the guy that did a lot of the driving force, the drummer for it, how he directed them. He was the guy that did a lot of the lyrics for everything.
Well, to me, I don't know why it stands out for me. I mean, I like Moving Pictures as a whole. I mean, Tom Sawyer and In the Limelight and things, but Subdivisions is one of my favorite songs of this, and they just had, and they were heavily in like produced albums and stuff and songs and things, but I really liked it. So yeah, so that was number 3. Number 3, yes, we're on number 3. Well, he is one of my favorites, all-time favorites, and in all honesty, this is a group I listen to more than many others right now. But I have I've had this album, one that my parents kind of influenced me a little bit on this because they had it. But I listened to this album, which I thought was a greatest hits, because to me, this album is a greatest hits, like every song I like. But then over the years, I got all their other albums and I just listened to them to death. And that is Electric Light Orchestra.
Memories. I love those guys.
Now, I would say these guys, Rusty, are heavily influenced by the Beatles. But the music is very different still. And I find the attitude and sort of the quirkiness and sort of the kind of music suits me better than the Beatles. You know, I actually listen to them a lot more than the Beatles, and I seek their music out and put it on to listen to a lot more. This is the album that I grew up listening to, that I made me like them as a group. But now I probably listen to their other stuff much more because it's just more novel to me, like their album like Discovery and like all their other albums, Time and stuff that and I listen to that stuff more because, but then sometimes I'll put this on and it's just classic for me because
if I would have taken the time out, I would have dug out my 8-track box and I had that on 8-track.
This one, yeah, this is just an amazing album. And yeah, actually, yeah, my daughter loves this album too. It's kind of passing through the family. Yeah, and so my first album back then, they were called the Next Beatles. That doesn't surprise me, just because of the I think what it is there's a lot of harmonies incorporated into the lyrical aspects of the music that remind me at times of the Beatles, even though it's sort of a decade/generation separated, if that makes sense. Maybe a decade and plus. I don't know, something like that.
So your parents listened to a lot of the ELO?
My mom actually had this album and she really liked it, and I wouldn't say that she played it always around me, but when I was kind of really getting into music, I would go through her stuff, and I listened to this on, I think, on vinyl, if I remember correct, and then got it on CD. It was an album that I had in the late 80s, early 90s, even though it was not of that time, you know, and listened to a lot then. I never bought any of their other stuff until maybe 5-6 years ago. And then like 5-6 years ago, I started buying all their other stuff.
Yeah, I got a whole bunch of their, I think pretty much almost their entire collection was on 8-track.
Mm-hmm.
I had an 8-track tray. It's like the car, the parents' car had a 8-track player in it. My 69 Cougar that's out parked outside has an 8-track player in it. Mm-hmm. But I had an 8-track player in the house, and I would play like my my next group was had it on 8-track, and I would play a lot of ELO because I'd do a lot of workouts with it, and it's like you throw them in, and it's like, well, I could probably do this here. Here we go. Had these guys on 8-track.
Oh, sure.
They're like, I listened to a lot of Queen too.
My first car was a used, highly used, old 1978 Buick Regal, and in it came with an 8-track. And I was, my mom gave me some 8-track tapes, but one that stood out is I had Changes Bowie, the album Changes Bowie, and so that was a cool 8-track to have at the time. Some David Bowie, it was really good.
Yeah, I got a 79 Mercury Cougar, which was my first Cougar I got. Mm-hmm. And it came with an 8-track player in it also. Mm-hmm. And I remember it's like, I wanted more sound in it. I wanted amplifier and all that stuff. So I yanked that out and I put a Craco cassette player in there and put an amp in there, 50-watt amp, put new speakers in. Oh, yeah.
Well, I did something really stupid that only like a teenager would do at the time with their first car. Is I spent $500 in 1989 for a 78 Buick Regal, and then I put a $500 stereo in it. I put an Alpine that you could move. At the time, they were really big that you could pull in and out. You know, like you could pull it with you. Cassette. And it was a Alpine cassette stereo. And I had that with sheepskin covers, white sheepskin covers over the bucket seats.
Because the bucket seats were probably falling apart. So
That's some nice white sheepskin covers and the Alpine. I didn't have the dice or anything like that, but those were good times. And that was the only car I ever owned where it didn't have rack and pinion steering. It had an old wheel box, and so when I would spin the wheel, you could spin it 3 times like you were on a ship. You know, compared to make a turn compared to going like that. And when I first got a car with rack and pinion steering where I could go like that and turn, I was like, this is amazing.
Well, we would drive. We had the '67 Camaro that didn't have power brakes or power steering or anything in it. And I remember we're doing driver's ed, and the first time I got in, so I learned on a pickup truck, stick, every the '74 pickup, no power steering, no power brakes or anything. And I get in there the first day in driver's ed, and it's like, all right, take her out. We come up, I come to a stop, see a stop sign. It's like, I hit the old brake, and I was used to mashing it as hard as I can. And it's like, they're like, what are you doing? And it's like, whoa. It's like, wow, I never knew brakes worked this good. And it's like, yeah, you don't have to, you just give it a little bit of push and you stop. And I'm like, well, my vehicle I drive all the time out on the farm, it's like, it doesn't have any of that stuff. And they go, oh, that makes sense. And I remember the first time I got into it, I'm like, where's the stick shift? Like,
well, we are at number 2, Rusty.
Number 2.
Oh, yeah. We got some comments there.
Yeah, just bring the comments up here.
Yeah.
All righty. Here we go. Well, I got a couple here. Got more of them, but.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. That's a little surprising to me. I didn't expect to see
I'm
that
a huge Billy Idol fan.
Yeah, that's cool.
Scott can attest to this. If you would have seen me in the '80s, you would have swear I had that Billy Idol look going.
Yeah, you had the bit of a spiky dyed hair and bleached.
Yeah, and I had a little bit also the.
Did you have the snarl? The like, or how does he do it? Like
with my set. Yeah, he was just last summer. He was in Iowa. It's like he was here during the fair, so I didn't get to go to him. I would have went to see him.
I heard he was sick actually recently and in the hospital.
Yeah, he was supposed to go on a tour with a lot of different bands, but he had to get surgery done. So it's like he had to give her up.
Scott says he's surprised he's number 2 as well.
Well, it's like
it's good to have some surprises with close friends. You can have a surprise even after you know each other all these years.
It's like after all these years, I still will listen to Billy Idol as much as possible. It's like he has a wide range of styles of music. Each album is like, when you listen to it, it's like it's a theme. Each album has a theme. It's like I really
you can almost say he's a little bit like your idol.
Like this one, Cyberpunk.
Did you see what I did there? No.
Oh, I see what you did.
Well,
yeah. So each one has a theme to it, and if you listen to it, you kind of understand what he's going for in each one.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we all have different favorites throughout our lives that can change at different times, but there was a long time in my life where these guys were my absolute favorite, and they still, their collection of music is still a favorite of mine. Did you just shout out yes?
Yes.
No, it's not yes. Although that's interesting you would say that. That's interesting. Yeah. And so, I'm not sure.
The glare, I'm having a hard time reading.
Well, yeah, it is CSN, Crosby, Stills and Nash, but it's actually Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I just grabbed the CSN album because I have like some of their greatest hits and this and that. But Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, everything from their late '60s sort of politically rebellious music through all their albums. They're basically a super band, right? Because they all came from already successful bands and then formed a super kind of lyrical music making group. And Neil Young, obviously, I think of the 4 exploded in his, solo career, even after that. And he would be a tough one because I really like him too. And I didn't include him in my list on his own, but he would be one that I really quite like as well. But
Traveling Wilburys, Power Station.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Like other super bands, that, exactly. It's very much like that. And to me, it's just so long ago that maybe people don't think of them that way, unless you were there in the mid '60s and knew who the Byrds were and the Hollies and like those kinds of groups. Many people Don't think about those groups, depending on what your age is. But Crosby, Stills and Nash, I love their music just through and through, and so to this day, I don't listen to them nearly as much as many of the other ones that I talked about tonight. But it's because I've listened to so much that I kind of got burned out on them. But I still at times will put them on and just really love it, still when I do. So I don't know. So that is them. That is my number 2. And here we go. Our music has diverged as we got towards the top a lot. When we first started, we were all talking about like heavier 80s stuff, and then it all kind of spread it a little bit differently. But yeah, so who is your number 1? There you go.
Back in Black.
There, you mentioned you kind of already alluded to them.
Yeah, it's like AC/DC is a iconic music. It's sad that that they're having problems and stuff. But age does that to you.
Yeah.
They were music when we were in junior high, high school, and they were so popular. And then when Bon Scott, and then they brought in, this was the Back in Black. We're back in action. We're back, but we're in black. So this is a power album. Every song on here is a hit, which is crazy.
Yeah.
How do you have an entire album where every song on it is a hit? You hear every one of the songs on here on the radio all the time. It's iconic.
And how many songs I have that album, but how many songs were on it again?
10.
Yeah.
I had
still a lot though. To have
the very first time I got this was on 8-track. So I got it on 8-track and I wore it out. And then I got it on cassette. And I've wore out like several cassettes of it. And then they got it on the CD and it's still going strong. And then I'll also have this on iTunes also.
Cool. It's funny, not to detract from your pick of AC/DC, but when listening to all of your ones and having talked with you about music for a while, I was a little surprised that Billy Idol and REO Speedwagon came up. Those were kind of ones I never heard you talk about before, but Journey didn't, which I've heard you talk about a lot. That's the King of the Mountain?
No.
Okay. Because
not the King of the Mountain, but Journey is.
Well, I know that you have them.
No, REO Speedwagon again.
Yeah.
You don't have to prove anything to me. Let's do some honorable mentions.
No, but
go ahead. Do your number 1, and then
I'll do my number 1. Well, I think I've already. So this is the only group. So Steely Dan is my number 1, yeah. and they're actually, you might as well say the others are 11 through 20, and Steely Dan's number 1 if we were to compare them, like in the level. And there is no King of the Mountain for me other than that. Like I can't do any higher. And number 2 might as well be number 11 because these are my absolute favorite artists. And all I can say is they're a group that I've listened to so much. And even though I might put them down, I've never really gotten burnt out. I've never. It's one that I've never quite have ever gotten burnt out. And whereas I've had artists when I was younger and as I was growing up that like Crosby, Stills and Nash would be like my favorite, and I would kind of move out of them. They have been my favorite since I would say 1998 is probably around when I got out of college. Nobody's come close since that time. They've remained my favorite. There's really probably no. And then I also like Donald Fagen's solo stuff too. So I listen to his solo stuff as well. Totally different than a lot of other music I listen to. There is some crossover. I know it was mentioned earlier, like the Doobie Brothers, Steely Dan. There is some people refer to the Steely Dan as the yacht rock too, although I'm of the opinion it kind of meshes with it, but it a little supersedes that genre a little bit because for me personally, that level of the jazz influence and stuff is not fully encapsulated by yacht rock. But at the same time, that's just my own personal opinion. But yeah, I like all of their stuff. I like their stuff. Can't Buy a Thrill. I only grabbed this one because it was the first album that they made, and it's the one that I listened to the most first. I kind of went sequentially through. when I got into them, I just started going sequentially through all of their works, and so it's still meaningful to me as a first album. This is a very unique album among their work, because most of their other stuff gets much more jazzy and highly produced, like Asia. And Asia, I think it's pronounced. I used to always pronounce it as Aja, but Gaucho, like those are really more highly produced albums. This is a bit heavier and soulful rock kind of injection more into it. Like Do It Again, everybody probably knows this, they've heard it. But yeah, these are my favorites. I actually just last weekend watched a video documentary of the making of Asia, the album. It's called Classic Albums. It's like you can buy them on DVD, and it has them talking about them. And so, yeah, they're my absolute, by far, favorite.
Interesting. That high production era, that would be up there for me. Jerry Rafferty, Dire Straits would be my favorites from that era.
Yeah.
Our Scott and I's mutual friend Jerry was a huge Steely Dan fan. He had all the stuff that they had up to the date, and he would sit around. He was kind of a soulful, kind of relaxed kind of guy, which is kind of interesting. He went and joined the Marines, but that maybe it came back later in life, but he would listen to a lot of it, just kind of kick back and relax and listen to Steely Dan. And so I know a lot of Steely Dan stuff just through him. I never bought any Steely Dan. I never had to because
you always had it on.
Always had it. So like if we were driving around in his car, he had Steely Dan going.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're you know, I don't know what else to say other than they are my favorite. They're my king of the mountain. There's nowhere higher to go. I was really sad when Walter Becker died.
Yeah.
But I have that one. Love it. They're an honorable mention for me.
I enjoy seeing these guys whenever it's like I'm going to see them in concert soon. I enjoy seeing them in concert whenever it's possible, and I just realized something's interesting. Where's the tape?
Uh-oh. There's
that.
I have their second version of that too. That's like purple and blue.
Yeah. It's like I got it on iTunes and stuff too. You got your greatest hits and all that stuff.
I like the album. I like the era that they have. I like all their like stuff, to be honest, on their greatest hits. But I like the album Escape, and that has "Stone in Love," the song, I believe, on it. I think that's the same album from the album Escape. And at the time, there was a video game for the Atari called Escape, and you don't normally. I think like Michael Jackson has had some video games made for him, but you don't typically, and particularly at that time, you don't typically have like musicians and rock bands have like their own video game. And it's not normal. Like it's not a normal association that I have seen all the time. It's not typical, but their stuff, they were big enough at the time, and their imagery with their album art and some of their stuff was cool enough that they truly made like almost a space game, like, you know, with like a spaceship, and they borrowed off that and called the game Escape, and it was like the Journey video game. And I'll never forget that to this day. Did you know that? Yeah, maybe while we're just talking, I'll just find something to show you guys real quick, because I think it's kind of really cool. It's real retro.
You need to put your list in the comments, Bill. Now, so here's another one. Quiet Riot. I'd say Journey was probably, I had a toss-up between REO Speedwagon and Journey. I always felt more towards REO Speedwagon than I did Journey. So it was like number 11 and number 10 type thing with my choices.
Well, here, this is the best way I can show this. I'm just going to share my screen if you want to zoom in. Oh, it is share screen. Yeah. Okay, that's what I get. And tell me when, can you see the screen with all the little boxes here?
Hang on a second. There we go.
Okay. I don't know if you can see this well, but here's like the cartridge for the Atari.
Yeah.
And it was Journey Escape for the Atari 2600. You can see the ship here firing. Like it almost has got like a Space Invader kind of aspect to it. And then are you hot enough to play with Journey? Do you see this? Do you see this? This is them on the back of the video game. Are you hot enough to play with Journey? But at the time, this was just really big. You know, like, well, it was like Atari was big, Journey was big, and so, you know, like they had a Journey video game.
Yeah, you're using one to sell the other.
Yeah, it's just funny. Let me stop sharing. Okay.
All right, if you got a top 10 list, you need to put it in the comments, and I'll pop it up for you. Now, here's another one that was a real toss-up.
Scorpions.
Yeah, it's like
sure.
I had a girlfriend that loved Scorpions. She just like would go crazy over them. So, well,
I mean, his voice was kind of pretty seminal for that era, right? And you know, and I was thinking, you know, who I get reminded of for some reason when I hear Scorpions is I also think of Dio, too, for some reason. And I don't know if it's because they're both like German, like acts that came out of Germany. Is that right?
What band?
Dio.
Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah. Didn't he have a band called Dio?
That he was British, but
am I thinking of a different guy?
There was Udo Dirkschneider that was with, except he went solo for a while.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of Dio. Actually, well, Ronnie James Dio was an American singer and songwriter.
Yeah.
He fronted and founded numerous groups throughout his life.
Yeah. He was the front guy for Black Sabbath.
Yeah. But wasn't he later? Or was he early?
He was after, he took over after Ozzy.
Okay, that's what I thought, because I don't think of him for the early stuff, but Ozzy was on, which is mostly what I'm familiar with. But yeah, like Dio, you know, I think of him sometimes when I think of the Scorpions too, like that kind of music, but I don't know this style. I don't know. But yeah.
There's a Robert Plant.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin. I got to talk to him actually on the radio.
Oh, that's pretty
cool. You remember Rockline?
I don't.
It's like back in the 80s, they had a show called Rockline, and they'd have a band on, and they would talk to them. You could call in and ask questions and stuff. And I remember I got in and I talked to them, asked them a question, how, you know, the transition of going from Led Zeppelin, now you're a solo because the band broke up and all that. How's it? Where do you feel your direction, your career is going with music and everything? He's like, well, now you say it, I got an album coming out. So that was one of the things he was talking about. Cool. And as a result, remember the game Galaga for the Atari?
Yeah, I do. I love it.
That was one of the gifts I got for getting in and talking to him. It's like,
nice.
You got a free Atari and a Galaga game. I was like, wow, cool.
Looks like Scott's heading out. Thanks for joining, Scott.
And it's like, you cannot have in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, you can't go cruising the loop with your girlfriend and your friends without listening to
the Cars. Yeah, they're awesome as well, for sure.
Now, I said I had a king of the pile, and I kind of alluded to it earlier in the show, but
there you go, Judas Priest.
Judas Priest. We got the cassette, we got the CD, we got the album.
You have the heavy metal parking lot at the Judas Priest concert.
I was a huge Judas Priest fan. It's like every time Judas Priest on, I crank it up. They were one of my top favorite bands of all time. And it's like, it was hard when you were to say, make a top 10, who's number 1, 2, and 3. And I was like, oh, just yanked out my cord. But it was hard to decide, was it going to be Billy Idol, AC/DC, or Judas Priest? It was like those three. It was like, somebody had to be number 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Basically, how it had.
I think you got a little blurry there from moving stuff real close to the camera. It'll probably refocus there in a moment there. Yeah. I think it's a bit better. Cool. Yeah. No, those are awesome. That vinyl is that like a collector vinyl?
Yeah, it's brand new. Got it on Amazon.
Nice.
It's like we got the record player that we have. My son has a record player, so it's all the songs are on one side.
Oh,
so
okay.
They flip it over. They put everything on one side now.
Oh, that's cool.
And then the other side, they have kind of extra stuff on the other side.
Yeah. So not all the songs are on one side.
Yeah. Well, it's not music. It's just talking about stuff.
It's other stuff. Cool.
All right. So we got a second short topic.
Yeah. I think we have enough time for it. Basically, question is, what kind of music do you like to listen to while you paint? Which is not exactly the same thing for me. It's not exactly
totally
the same
different. It's one of those things where you want something that's more relaxing, and you don't want to get pumped up and just get excited when they're trying to paint something really intricate. You want to have everything calm down.
Well, everybody's different. I have times where it's like that, and then I have times where I like to be really motivated by music while I'm painting. And so I don't want to be like wired up to the point where I'm shaking, but I want to really feel awake and kind of hopping, like, just to kind of keep going and whatever. And so sometimes I actually go the opposite. So when I think of music and I think of what I like to listen to, sometimes what it reminds me of is when was my favorite times where the two meshed together so well. And one time was when an honorable mention for me is Jethro Tull. I like Jethro Tull. And some of their music is almost, I don't know, it's like almost has medieval aspects to it because it's got the flute.
Jethro Tull, yes. That same type of era kind of music to me.
Yeah, and I actually remember painting my Beastmen. And while I'm painting the Beastmen, particularly the Ungors, and they're all these like satire-looking kind of Ungors and stuff, and then I'm listening to the flute and like the Jethro Tull music, and it was just like it meshed. Like I was like, I am listening to the best music right now to paint these guys. Like I'm so into this. And so sometimes there's a theme component, when like that can actually work.
So you're sitting there making the femur bone flute.
I guess, yeah. And sometimes I like to listen to just sort of relax, and I oftentimes will listen to things like the Doobie Brothers, like the late 70s Doobie Brothers and stuff that we were talking about. And I like that. Sometimes recently I'll listen to hip hop actually, and even like I know you're not big into hip hop, but I'll listen to like I was listening to Biggie Smalls and all of his stuff from the early 90s, and listening to that, grooving while I'm actually painting. And so, just really kind of depends for me. I've listened to all the new albums of anything that I've gotten recently. I oftentimes will put on YouTube first before I'll buy them, and just give them a listen through. And so I've listened to, things like Electric Light Orchestra and like all that stuff, like while I'm painting. How about you?
Well, I have a little bit of everything. It's like local kid. He's not a kid anymore. He's like 40 something. But Matt Woods, I got a whole collection of his music. Matt Woods and the Thunderbolts. It's blues.
Oh, okay.
He's a rock and blues guy, and he's got albums out. He's a local guy. He opened up, which is crazy enough, for Pat Benatar and Journey.
Oh, nice.
On this big stage at the state fairground. That's how I found him. It's like this guy, like, oh, this guy's good. It's like, I like this. Like, who is this? It was like, look, it was like Matt Woods. So I looked him up, and it was like, and then I realized that I met him before.
Oh.
And it's like I sent him in. It's like I want to buy your albums. You got currently, and he's like, "Hey, I know you." It's like, yeah. It's like, which is kind of crazy because you can go to the bar when he's playing because he plays local gigs all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But he's big in the blues. He's played at the Blues Hall of Fame. Opened up in there and all kinds of stuff. It's
Nice.
really, really good music. And which is kind of interesting is you think about all the heavy metal and stuff. And he's like, I'm a blues guy.
Well, it's funny. I mean, most of the live music that I listened to locally when I lived in North Carolina before coming to Canada in sort of the Blue Ridge Mountains, because I was out in Asheville, was bluegrass. And I listened to a lot of bluegrass live. And I have stuff from when I lived there still that I'll listen to from local acts. The Larry Keel Experience is one that I still listen to quite a bit, and they're local. They were fairly local to the Blue Ridge Mountains, and I like that stuff. Looks like we got Bill's top list here. Now, is is number 1 number 10, or is number 10 number 1? Or like is it the end, the beginning? Is Reverend Horton Heat number 1, and then where's Ramones number 1?
I'd say the Ramones are probably number 1.
Yeah. So then we got
Dropkick Murphy, A Blue Oyster Cult, Don't Fear the Reaper, YouTube. Yeah, YouTube is an excellent. I got one of their albums right here. I love YouTube. ZZ Top was sort of on the bubble of making into the list. Big Sabaton. Yeah, it's like the latest Sabaton albums right here, just out of reach. But Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, Poison.
I like Creedence Clearwater Revival quite a bit.
Here we go. All right, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, Appetite for Destruction. Definitely very different than my list for sure, but that's a good thing because we're all different.
CCR.
The Ramones that's pretty cool because that's very much like a punk.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
Like very much an American punk band. Seminal band from that time.
Well, you think about it, it's like Billy Idol got his start into punk rock, so I knew who he was before he became Billy Idol, so that's kind of cool. So it's there's a lot of good choices in there.
Like, yeah, absolutely.
I remember when I went to a ZZ Top concert once. Seen them like 4 or 5 times now. The first time I went to them, I was with one of my girlfriends, and you got all these guys with biker dudes, they're all leather and everything, and big burly bearded dudes, and you're like, am I in the wrong place? Am I safe? I'm in danger.
I'll never forget Eliminator, the album, when it came out in the mid 80s, because that was really popular. Yeah, really popular. And that was a big MTV phenomena too, right?
She's got legs.
Yeah.
Lately, the last few years, about the last 3 years now, I like listening to The Who.
Mm-hmm.
The other Who, HU.
Oh, right. You told me about them. Yeah, different Who.
Yeah, I send you a link every once in a while.
Yeah.
They do it stuff. It's kind of it's Mongolian rock band.
Mm-hmm.
They take Mongolian instruments and turn it into rock music. It is good. I don't understand a damn word they're saying, but it's like music you play in the background. It's like kind of bestial, type of thing. It's like when you're sitting there going at it. If there's, what else do you want to listen to?
Just in all honesty, trying to think what else would be different. I actually think I probably listen to a lot more hip hop when I'm painting music, and so like it would be, among those artists, a lot of what I listen to is early hip hop was like the late 70s, early 80s, and then the 90s was sort of the peak of, in my mind, or it was just like an explosion. I'm not sure I'm going to say that maybe it was the peak, but it was kind of an explosion of what it was today. Like it really became what it was today, like in the 1990s. There was a huge change from the 80s as it was evolving from its roots, and so I listen to a lot of that stuff, just I find it really sort of energetic, listening and painting and enjoy it. And that's something I've really come to appreciate more in the last 10 years. I never used to listen to it at all before that. And so I kind of mixed that in a bit too with everything else I listened to. And then probably a lot of the yacht rock stuff, a lot of the late 70s, early 80s sort of rock that, we've been talking about primarily. I don't know how too much else other than what I like that I would listen to beyond that. Just a mixture of different artists. But I kind of brought up the Jethro Tull just because it was such an experience of just sort of meshing with what I was doing so much, which was kind of cool.
Now, for me, something that you may find interesting. Now, I've alluded to it earlier when I was talking about the Police and Sting.
Mm-hmm.
And my son came down, and before we threw on the Judas Priest album and listened to it this afternoon, was the music is going. He comes down, he's like, "Is that Sting?" I'm like, no, that's not Sting, because Sting did classical guitar music.
Mm-hmm.
He has an album that's totally classical guitar. He sings like John Dolan music style. He did an album dedicated kind of like to John Dolan, who happened to be a 1500s bard. And I learned some of his music on the guitar, 6-string acoustic guitar. And that was going in. It's like, no, it's classical lute music. So I'll pop up. The wonderful thing about YouTube is like type in classical lute music and it'll pop up and you get all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And people may not know it, but Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, Chopin, you name it, though, every one of those guys did music for the lute.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just type in classical lute music and you'll get all that. And it's just relaxing. It's like,
sure.
So you get classical music going with a lute.
Yeah. That sounds good. And then probably something that I know you paint a lot late at night too, which sometimes getting too wound up like right before you want to go to bed is the best thing either.
And I have to have kind of quiet stuff going on, because if my wife, the bedroom's right above us where I'm working, so I can't have loud music going, or else she'll come down and
So you can't blast the Who, either one of them,
no,
at that hour.
Not at all. So you got to have something relaxing, kind of quiet music going on in the background. So, and it's be interesting is that you sit there and let it go, and it is relaxing. And you get to a point where you're going, no, I think I'm just going to go crash to bed.
Yeah, exactly.
Your serotonin levels have relaxed down.
There you go. Cool. Well, that was an interesting show. It kind of dawned on me that it would be kind of neat, even though it's not heavily wargaming related, to talk necessarily about music, but it was fun.
All right. We have got an entire show without saying one thing.
I have a drop left.
Battle check.
There we go. Now we can still call it a Musty Wargamers episode.
Yes, we can. Well, we did talk about over here.
Yeah.
I sent you a picture of all the new stuff I got, all the new boxes. I got Tactical Space Marine, 2 Imperial Guard boxes, a Chaos Horde box, Battle Group box, and 6 more Titans. So
nice.
I got 12 big Titans, and I got 6, I think it's 6 Warhound Titans now for
nice.
Epic.
That's awesome.
So I got a nice collection of Epic stuff added.
Yeah, that's great.
I need to do a video and then show it all laid out and all my newest edition.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think we're probably ready about to call it.
Oh, I forgot these guys.
There you go. They're a good one. Mr. Roboto.
Domo arigato,
Mr. Roboto.
Domo.
Thanks for coming, Bill. Appreciate all of your input into what we've been talking about.
Yeah, we're gonna sign off here. It was like we got one other person in here that we don't know about.
I'm not sure now because I think Scott took off. So yeah, I think we've wound down.
Everybody's headed out.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was fun. It was kind of cool to kind of go through all that. was an interesting exercise, I think.
Yeah, every once in a while we just have to throw something to the wind, and I do enjoy top off things like it's kind of related to what we do.
Yeah.
But it's like music is something we listen to while we're doing our hobby stuff. So it just segues great into it.
Well, and it's interesting to learn about your fellow hobbyists that are into one thing, but then like the other stuff they're into, like and particularly in pop culture and things. And, because we have things that kind of bring commonality in wargaming, but then many of us are close in decades and things like that. And we're sort of, and we just have, it's interesting to just see the other things that influence them, like and things they like, and stuff. And oftentimes it's not always the same, and so it's kind of interesting.
Definitely.
So
even if we're almost, I was working long time before you even get out of high school, but it's interesting that we have a lot of the same music we listen to.
Yeah, no, it's true. And then a lot of stuff I listen to, you might consider early for you too, in the sense of, even for your age, I wouldn't say the Beatles or the Who were probably what you would like were popular when you were in high school, right? As far as new music, or am I wrong on that?
Maybe the Who was popular because they were still putting music out when I was in high school.
Okay.
And I went to, in my senior year, they had the last concert tour they ever did, and I went to it.
Well, like Crosby, Stills, and Nash, probably not, right?
No,
not at that point. No. No. Yeah. Well, in any case, yeah, no, it's interesting. There's still a lot of crossover for sure. So
I would imagine there was still people in my class that would listen to them. There was I graduated with 420 people, so I imagine there was somebody in that group
There's somebody. All right, Rusty. I think that's probably time to pull it.
All right, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks over on Palmer's channel. And not sure if it's going to be a paint chat or another stand-up. We're going to be inviting everybody on for whoever was on with us. So it'd be Bill could join us, Dan, and some other individuals. So we work that out.
Absolutely. All right.
All right. We'll see you in a couple. Good night, everybody.
Good night.